Hello, everyone. My name is Katia Lopez. I am the Arts Now program manager here at Create California. Thank you so much for being here today. This is an informational webinar on our Arts Now program. So we'll be going through a few things. First, I'd like to have the panelists that are here with me today introduce themselves. I'll hand it off first to Ricky.
Hi, folks. Thank you so much for being here and for your interest in the Arts Now program. I'm program director here at Create California, and my pronouns are they, them. I'll hand it over to Veronica.
Thank you, Ricky. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Veronica Talton. I'm a performing arts teacher and arts education consultant in Santa Clara County, where I serve as an Arts Now cohort leader. I'm pleased to be here in community with all of you today. Back to you, Katia.
Thank you all so much for being here. Let's get started. So the mission of Create California is to advocate for high quality arts education for all students by providing policy expertise and mobilizing a statewide network of advocates and allied partners. We do this through a variety of ways. And one of those ways is through the Arts Now program. So what is Arts Now? We're a statewide network of arts education advocates and coalitions. And currently we have 30, we have Arts Now leaders in 37 out of 58 counties, so more than half of California. So that's really great. Overall, we've had 131 participants through our program. And so we're getting there and hoping that we are able to complete the whole map. So Arts Now is a 3-year program with each year Arts Now participants being able to participate in professional development, local coalition building, and excuse me, give me 1 second, and technical assistance. With this 3-year program, each year kind of expands on the last. So we'll talk about that more. We have 3 learning objectives. 1, to develop a deeper understanding of school and government systems to build effective advocacy campaigns. 2, develop a compelling personal narrative to engage public officials and build shared understanding around the value and impact of arts education. And 3, develop a deeper understanding of the arts education landscape to better share the benefits of the arts to local communities. So with these 3 learning objectives, we hope that Arts Now participants or Arts Now leaders are able to really understand the context of their local school community, one from understanding at a statewide level what the California education system does and what it pertains and how unique it is when it comes to arts education specifically, and then understanding how to build and create a personal narrative to then share that value and impact of arts education. And it really all comes together to be able to really understand what is going on in my community, how can I help expand and help access to arts education be more beneficial to my local communities and the students in that said community. With the learning objectives, we do have outcomes. So by the end of the program, participants will have 1, created an advocacy action plan that demonstrates long-term and short-term priorities. And those are to expand equitable arts education, create or update a district arts strategic plan, and to engage and local communities in decision making. 2, to develop a hyper-local campaign to advance arts education policy and build relationships with elected officials. And 3, build a local coalition of community partners that is reflective of student and community demographics to advance arts education access. So it's all in tandem, and we hope that at the end of this program that we will have that each participant, each Arts Now leader will have all these 3 outcomes complete. With Ricky and I, as the as the leaders of the Arts Now program, we will be helping you throughout the 3 years to develop and to come to these outcomes. And again, that is through professional development and technical assistance. And we're going to go and talk a little bit about the timeline and deliverables. Ricky?
Yeah, so we know it can sound a little overwhelming to have so many learning objectives and outcomes, but a reminder that it is over the course of 3 years. You'll notice that we use the language hyperlocal or local coalition building quite a bit in the program, and that's because we believe that you're all the experts. You know what's going on in your community. We're here to help provide the tools and resources you need to become strong advocates. And so we call this a sequential learning model. As Katya said, 1 year builds on the other. You start in year one building a foundation. So it's largely focused on understanding the way government works and your role in engaging government officials. You develop a personal narrative, a compelling narrative that you can use when speaking to funders, local leaders, or even community partners. And then you do have a deliverable, which is to create an advocacy action plan. This is typically a document that has 3 to 4 strategic goals or priorities that you are aiming to accomplish over the 3 year period and maybe even beyond the program. And then tactics, getting very detailed about how you're going to accomplish those goals and priorities. We help you build that action plan, and it's really up to the program participant to decide how often they want to meet with us. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. The second year is more focused on building a campaign. How do you take that foundation, all those tactics that we talked about, and turn them into action? What campaigns might be helpful to get the outcomes you're looking for? This might be a letter campaign to elected officials, it could be phone banking, or it could be a social media campaign. So we give you the tools and resources you need to develop that campaign. And we also ask you to meet with an elected official. So the deliverables for the second year are to develop a hyperlocal campaign. We host it on our website. So you develop it, we host. You don't have to worry about getting it out into the state. And then we will help you set up a meeting with an elected official. This might be local. It might be attending an advocacy day in Sacramento and meeting with your statewide official there. The third year is focused on building sustainability. So this is what we like to view as an independent year, or letting our participants fly on their own, and we're just here to support as needed. So we do ask that you mentor incoming cohorts. We might ask you to meet with them a couple times over the course of the year, but you're largely focused on making your action plan come to fruition and developing content that raises awareness about your coalition. That's the 3 year program in a nutshell. There are required components of the program, which includes an annual Leadership Institute. This is a 1 day intensive training. This year it will be on Zoom, but in subsequent years, we are hoping that it will be in person, where we will pay for folks to travel to our offices here in Pasadena, and you will all get to connect with each other, not just with your cohort, but other cohorts as well. So we mentioned mentorship. You'll get to meet mentors in person. You'll have a breakfast together. There will be networking time. You'll learn from each other's experiences, but there will also be intensive training in the items that are listed in that grid above. There's also asynchronous learning. So we understand a lot of folks who want to do this type of program work full time or have diverse artistic practices. They're busy. So it is an asynchronous portal. We use Google Classroom. There are about 3 to 5 videos per module, and you can complete them on your own time, though we give you a timeline, a suggested timeline. So that first module is focused on government and school systems. You'll learn about the difference between state and local government. You'll also learn about what is advocacy and how do I become a strong advocate. You'll learn about school boards and their role in your local school district. The second module is focused on the arts education landscape. So this is where things like Prop 28 come up. For those who don't know, Prop 28 was passed by voters a couple of years ago. It's $1 billion of annual funding for arts education in schools across the state. Super exciting. A majority of that money at each school needs to go towards hiring arts teachers, whereas the rest of the money can go towards things like materials or partnerships. So you'll learn more about Prop 28. You'll learn about LCAP or the local control. Oh my gosh. Wow. Local
Full
accountability plan.
accountability
Local control
program.
accountability
Yes.
plan. Wow. That just
So
went out of
you
my
will
brain.
also learn a variety of acronyms that fumble the mind. So yes, that's a part of
Yes.
it too.
And then also ELOP, which is Expanded Learning Opportunity Program. So there are a lot of different programs and buckets of funding that schools use to offer programming to students. The third module is narrative and coalition building. So this dives deeper into who do you want to engage in a coalition? How can you make sure that you maintain interest so that you don't lose engagement with coalition members? And then how do you create that compelling narrative? There's also optional resources and tools that are listed in Google Classroom that we call additive. So they're not required videos or required resources, but you can use them to support your work moving forward. All right. And then the last thing I'll overview. There we
Okay.
go. What do we offer to you to support your work over these 3 years? Well, you will build a coalition, and so you're going to build community and a network of partners. As I said, we offer technical assistance. That might be templates for you to complete, such as campaign templates. It could be email templates to send out to coalition members. We might put you in touch with an elected official if you don't know who represents you. We might help you identify a partner who can help you expand your reach across your region. We offer $1,500 every year to participants. This is to support your work. We know it takes time to learn about advocacy. And so we're not paying folks to advocate, but we are paying folks for their time to learn. And then we offer tools and resources around specific topics. For example, there are a lot of challenges with Prop 28. So there might be hearings or advocacy campaigns that we want you to get involved in, and we'll share that information out. And then, as I said, the annual Leadership Institute, that 1 day intensive.
Great. And so I think we can tag team this, Ricky. So these are some um, expected frequently asked questions. So why is the program 3 years? Well, advocacy is a long-term process and commitment. It has a lot of it can be mentally and emotionally exhausting. So we totally understand that knowledge alone does not build effective advocates, which is why the first year focuses on foundational knowledge of the government systems and policies and the action plan. The second year focuses on campaign and coalition building, turning those plans into actions. And then the third year is largely independent with technical assistance offered as needed. So, things happen. A lot of our leaders tend to have full-time jobs. Veronica's going to talk about that a little bit. And they do this on top of that. So that is why the program is so long. How much time will I need to commit to each year? The program prioritizes outcomes over time. So most of the first year content is delivered through asynchronous educational modules, which Ricky talked about. There will be one full day retreat per year required in the fall. This year will be on Zoom, but we hope in the future years that they will be in person. And all other virtual meetings, webinars, and office hours are encouraged but optional. The program is intentionally designed for working professionals.
And
And
one
I'll
thing,
let,
one thing I'll add
yeah,
on onto that, yeah, is we have had a couple people be interested in how many hours per month or per year will you be investing. We don't set an hour time around it or amount of time because it's very different depending on how involved folks want to get. So those required components, each video is about 3 to 5 minutes. There are about 3 videos per module. So it doesn't take that much time. The all-day intensive training, the Leadership Institute, is about 8 hours long. But outside of the required components, the optional meetups, technical assistance, webinars, if you were to attend all of them, it might look like 25 hours a year. But if you don't attend all of them, it might look like less. And that doesn't include any additional work you put into engaging your coalition or to getting into community and speaking at school board meetings, things like that. So it's really a build your own adventure, which is why we try not to set a time to it. And then I'll take the last one, Katya. And so, how do we track progress? Largely through Google Classroom. We do not grade quizzes. There are no grades in this program. It's more about seeing whether people watched the videos or not. So we know that we're all working from the same base of knowledge. And then, of course, attendance at things like the Leadership Institute. That's how we track progress. It's pretty simple. And then, of course, the deliverables. Are you submitting your action plan, your campaign on time? That's basically it.
I'm going to hand it now over to Veronica Talton, third year Arts Now leader from Santa Clara County.
Thank you, Kathia, and welcome to everyone. Welcome to the Arts Now Create California family. I just want to share a little bit of my experience as an Arts Now leader. So I'm going to share my screen and give you a little bit of what it's like in Santa Clara County. So you'll find a quote that I have here. And I said, Arts Now didn't just change how I teach and lead. It strengthened my belief that every student deserves the opportunity to learn through creativity, connection, and the arts. So because I teach performing arts full time, I have the opportunity to engage directly with students and families. That means I also have the opportunity to engage with local elected officials at my school board. I was doing that prior to participating as an Arts Now cohort leader, but being that I am a part of Arts Now, I have additional resources, um, infographics, uh, online toolkits that can be shared directly with those officials and with families. So some of the things that I did my first year as an Arts Now leader was to just immerse myself in what Create California is all about. And so, of course, you have to create your action plan. What is it that you want to do? As an arts educator, as an arts education consultant, of course, I'm directly wanting to connect with students and families, but I also have partnered with community-based organizations in my area. So for those of you that belong to community partner groups, or if you're a teaching artist, you can still participate. It was really essential that the funding for the arts education that Ricky referenced, Prop 28, was used properly in the schools. And because it was a new initiative, many people, school leaders, principals, and even arts educators had no idea how it was going to roll out. So it was really helpful that Create California and other organizations had ready resources that we could share. We could pop links into emails very easily. We could share PDF versions. They're really diligent about sharing resources online, and that could be given to families. So I wanted to make sure I laid the foundation with my own education of what it means to truly advocate the Arts Now way. So I did things like going to the school board meetings and listening. I would email and also talk with school board leaders about Prop 28. And I'm fortunate in my county to have a VAPA coordinator, which is a visual and performing arts director that specifically meets with the visual and performing arts teachers in the county. That is very helpful. In districts where you do not have that, there can be a lack of organization with how the money is reported and how the information gets to management and school leaders. In addition to that, many county offices of education also have arts departments. Santa Clara County is fortunate to have that as well. So I created the partnership with my VAPA coordinator. with my county office of ed arts leader. And so they were sources of feedback for me. They supported what I was doing. In year two, is where I began to not just share with other arts teachers, but I began to branch out to other school districts, to community partners, and to be very intentional to cross collaborate. So I did things like sharing with local leaders in San Mateo County, East Side Union District. I even had a connection with a local university because my students performed there for a university basketball game, and I had a Create California table that I manned and answered questions during halftime. So it was kind of like killing two birds with one stone. So, in terms of managing your time, I would suggest that you take the time to uh, follow the asynchronous work that has been suggested, the videos and the training that you will get, and you do that one-on-one. And you can certainly schedule things with elected officials, but I would say take what you're doing in your current job and just share with people. Ask folks, do they know what Prop 28 is? Do they know how the schools in their area, their neighborhood, utilize the arts? Is there theater? Is there dance? Is there photography? Is there choir? Is there piano? Many districts simply just have instrumental music and band, but orchestra and choir is often left out in many high schools. So making sure there's arts integration across the board at elementary, middle, and high school levels is a really good place to start. I shared with as many performing arts teachers as I could, and we said, okay, we're going to form this coalition. We're going to go to each other's school board meetings. And we didn't exactly get to do that the way I'd envisioned. However, we stayed in community, and for the rest of the year, we would share resources with each other when we went to events and we saw each other. We would compare how things were going. And Create California also has Arts Now meetups, which are ways for you to engage with people across the state, and you can meet people from the different regions. As Kathia mentioned, we have 37 of 58 counties represented. So we still have work to do to make sure the arts are being implemented everywhere. So I want to go to this next slide and just kind of share what I would say for you if you're brand new and you have questions. So we do encourage collaboration. Don't try to do it alone. You can do your best work when you are achieving shared results with others. So relationships drive change. Many of the people who agreed to be in my coalition the first year, we're still partnering together. We're attending events together. We're sharing our successes and our challenges with Prop 28 and ways that we want to see it implemented in our local areas. And we're even trying to bring in more community partners. So I would say if you are not an arts educator, a teaching artist, I would recommend that you volunteer in a school and you try to meet them. You go into the schools and try to get information about ways that you can support. If you feel stuck and you don't really know what to do for next steps, if you're feeling overwhelmed, I think you've met both Kathia and Ricky, who are Arts Now program managers, and they are available to you. One of the things I really value about Create California is how approachable and accessible the program managers are. There has never been a time that I reached out that I didn't get the support that I needed. And 99.999% of the time that I'm, meeting with them individually for check-ins, I always leave feeling inspired. And I'm validated with why I'm doing arts now. Again, it's not because I want to get the stipend. It's because I care deeply about students receiving the arts education that they should. And I've had students who um, were not successful in some of their academic classes, but the arts are what kept them in school. So it's really important that we work together to make sure all of the students in California have access to a quality arts education, not just one offering, but as many as we can get. And some of the challenges are getting the teachers hired, teaching artists and other arts educators. So if you feel stuck, don't give up. And the last thing I'll say for this part is to take an action step to grow. So I really want to encourage you, this is my ask, to visit the website and the social media platforms that Create California has. They've partnered with other arts advocacy organizations. And I was fortunate enough this April to participate in the Arts and Culture Summit in Sacramento. Not only did I go to the pre-summit where Create California and the Friends of Sacramento Arts were presenting, but I had the opportunity to meet other arts educators and meet lots of community partners. And again, it was a way for me to both learn and to build connections. Because in this advocacy work, you will have successes, you will have challenges, but we've got to think of the end game. It's a marathon and not a sprint. So I'll pause right here to see if there are any questions or find out if Katia has the next steps.
Thank you so much, Veronica, for sharing your experience as an Arts Now leader. So yeah, I think if you can give like one little wrap up of why arts education advocacy is important at the local level. I know you talked a lot about how you see, as an educator yourself, you see students who may have been having challenges academically thrive in the arts world, arts and music world that they have in the school. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, because I think it aligns with my question.
So if parents have opportunities to go to their school, it could be for things like a science night. It could be for parent teacher conferences. It could be for a multicultural night. But what I've learned as an arts educator is that when students have performances, the parents show up. At least very much so at the elementary level. Middle schoolers and high schoolers, the parents are less involved sometimes because the kids are like, Mom, Dad, you don't have to be there. But parents do support at the secondary level. And so I think for both arts educators and those that are teaching artists, there are many opportunities when there are performing arts events for you to go and share. So I have two examples that I'll share this past year where I was able to directly speak to the power of the arts at the local level. And one of them was for our International Farm Workers Day. And this is where many elected officials, not just my school board, but county school board leaders, city council members, county commissioners are there, and they generally want student performances. So we had two different groups from my school district. My choir was one of them, and our mariachi band was another. And so my in between my student selections, I was able to share directly about Prop 28 and the importance of the arts. So an event like that, which has so many different speeches and
Mhm.
performances, I wasn't able to pass out any materials, but there were people who were listening and videoing, and things often get put onto social media platforms. So you're giving folks another opportunity to hear Prop 28 and the significance of it. The second thing that I'll share is where we had what is called the World Tour at my elementary site. And so I'm teaching at an elementary and a feeder middle where we have many K-8 districts, and then we have high school districts. But then there are also districts where they have a unified school district, which is
Mhm.
K through 12. So in my elementary school, I had the opportunity to have a teaching artist to come, and this teaching artist is one who I'd met at a San Mateo County arts event. We
Mhm.
collaborated and partnered. And I also, after my students' performance, I shared again about how we can bring these things to fruition. And that is because we have Prop 28 funds. The materials that Create California created around Prop 28, one-page infographics in both English and Spanish. I had laid out on one of our tables for families and community members to be there. So not only did they hear it from me, they saw in action some different things that have been brought to our campus. Um, and so they also had that information readily available. And I
Mhm.
do want to say, because I have worked intentionally to build relationships with local officials, all five of our school board members who I invited to come to the event were present. So it really makes a difference in letting your voice be heard. If you're nervous about speaking up at school board meetings or city council, any type of public setting, the resources are there. Talk to your program manager. They will support you. They will give you talking points. There's
Mhm.
toolkits. There's information from the CDE that you can share. And another thing that I do frequently in March is that March is both Youth Art Month and it's
Mhm.
Music in Our Schools Month. And there's always an opportunity to ask your school board to pass a resolution to support the arts. And there are not very many elected officials who won't do that. So again, I suggest that you stay connected with arts leaders. It can be both teaching artists and real arts educators in the schools. Try to build relationships with the principal. Try to build relationships with school board members, and absolutely reach out to your program managers and like all the posts and comment on them, because the resources are endless and they're usually very beautifully displayed.
Thank you so much, Veronica. I really appreciate you sharing your experience with us.
My pleasure.
Um, Thank you. I am going to pass it now to Ricky to go over the actual application for Arts Now.
So all of the information you've heard today are at the very top of the application. It's split into a few different pages. So you'll see what is Arts Now in the very top paragraph. We list our learning objectives and the outcomes because we know they're pretty hefty and so they can be helpful to refer back to. Then the second page is your basic information. So your full name, pronouns, email, phone number, your street address, city, zip code. If you're a part of an organization or affiliation, we give you a space to list that. This doesn't have to be a nonprofit organization or a corporation. It could be if you're part of a booster club at your child's school, or you're part of your local PTA chapter, that might be listed here. Maybe you volunteer somewhere, and that's important to list for you. Your position or role title. So this would be attached to your affiliation. Are you an officer on a booster club? Are you a program director like myself? If you want to list that, there's a section there too. Then we have a drop down for you to choose the county that you reside in. This is important because this is how we track data on where we have Arts Now participants and alumni across the state. We want to know how many people are in each county. And then once you've gone past the drop down, we ask you to select your primary role as an advocate in this program. We know that most of us cover a lot of different areas on this list, and that's okay. We're asking for a primary role because we want to better understand your point of view when you're advocating the most. So that you might be a student, that could be a college student. You could be a parent, teacher, educator, teaching artist. We have school admin, nonprofit admin, higher education, government funder, and then we also give the option to list something completely different. But again, primary, we know that you may check multiple boxes. And then, do you have experience as an advocate? This doesn't have to be in the arts or in arts education. You may have advocated for housing or another topic that counts too. This is to help us understand where you're starting from. So when we have one-on-one meetings, when we offer you technical assistance, we know how far to dive into those topics for you. And then the next page is our essay questions. We do ask that you keep each response limited to 1.5 paragraphs. That's 150 to 200 words. This is so that we can get a clear understanding of how you view your role in advocacy and your role in your community. So there's one question about your community and your connection to it. Describe it as best you can. We list some examples there for you. Why are you interested in joining the program, and in what ways do you think that Create California or the program might be useful in helping you advance your goals? That's one question. We're very passionate about students being at the center of this work, and so we're curious what your approach to youth engagement would be. And then the last is not really a essay question, but more of, do you have people in mind already for building a coalition? And we ask you to identify people and their titles or their names if as you feel comfortable in this question. Who are some of those folks you might reach out to build your coalition? And then the last page is demographic questions. These are completely optional. You do not need to give this information to us. We encourage it because it helps us improve our outreach methods and our engagement efforts. This information is not used to decide who gets into the program. Just want to make that clear. And if you don't feel comfortable answering these questions, you simply check prefer not to answer because they are listed as required. So we have a question about ethnicity, age, and you'll see in age there's ranges. So there are little brackets listed there. Gender, do you identify as a person currently living with a disability? And then how did you hear about this program or Create California? And that's the application. We are available to answer any questions throughout the application process as well. You'll see that Katya's email is listed at the very top right here, katya@createcalifornia.org if questions come up. The applications are due by July 20th. So you have some time, and it takes about 15 minutes to complete. That's it. That's the application and a little bit about the program. We're super excited to read your apps. Oh, I should mention, just in full transparency, some folks tend to be curious about this. How do you decide who gets into the program? We use a scoring rubric. So every application is scored, specifically the essay questions. There are 4 questions. Each question is scored on a scale from 1 to 5 based on how in depth you go and whether you actually answer the question or not. And then the final scores are tallied, and we look at who got the top scores, and 15 folks will get into the program. If there are more than 15, we do a second round of reviews and scoring, and we bring in a third party person to help us with that. So it is fair and unbiased. Cool. And with that, any questions before we close out our day for myself, Veronica, or Katya? I see one. How many advocates are chosen each year, and is there a limit for each county? Fantastic questions. So, in the past, the number of people that we've chosen has varied. This year, we are committing to selecting 15 folks into this cohort, and we want to try to standardize it so that folks feel like they're building a community together. And then in terms of is there a limit for each county? No. In the past, we've chosen multiple people in one county, so that is definitely possible. I'll just reiterate, it's based on scores. So if there are 2 people who are both based in Solano County and they got top scores, great, that's fine. We're not going to kick someone out from the scoring process because they're in the same county as another person. And then was there another question that popped up? What if we have more than one affiliation or role? Can we list multiple? Yeah, yeah, feel free to. I think it's short answer text, so you might only be able to list two, depending how long the role or affiliation is. But please feel free to do that. What I would recommend is list one, enter, and then list another, so it's easier to read for us as opposed to side by side. And then are you open to special education teachers participating? Absolutely. We want all types of folks. And that's actually a really good question. I should say we're interested in expanding the types of people who engage in this program. So Katya and I are passionate about getting folks who may not even know anything about arts education. That could be a parent that barely had a student participate in the arts for the first time this past semester and is curious about learning more and getting more access for their kid. So absolutely, special education teachers are welcome.
Thank you all so much for coming today, and I really appreciate you hearing us and hearing Veronica's experience. And thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day.